Hi, I'm Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy Segment Show. Also today in this segment, I'm at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio. The Age of Steam Roundhouse is located on 213 Smoky Lane Road, southwest in Sugarcreek, Ohio. The roundhouse was constructed in 2008, and all the steam locomotives that have been collected over the years are even kept inside the roundhouse. The project was paid for by Jerry Jacobson and his wife Laura. Jerry is the founder of the Ohio Central Railroad. He has been a train enthusiast since he was about 10 years old, and he loved steam trains. Every day after school, Jerry would ride his bicycle to the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad and would watch trains go by. One day he dreamed of having his own railroad and having his own steam locomotive. In 1988, Jerry closed on a purchase of a 70-mile-long former Norfolk and Western line between Harmon and Zanesville, which he renamed the Ohio Central Railroad. Almost immediately, Jerry began operating steam tourist passenger trains on the 7-mile trek between Sugarcreek and Baltic, Ohio. Jerry's steam collection grew over the following years. In 2008, he lost and sold his interest in the Ohio Central and sold it to the Genesee and Wyoming Railroad. Then he decided to build a roundhouse and move his collection there, and facilities were being constructed there. There was no opportunity to repair or operate any of Jerry's steamers. It is the first large roundhouse to be built in the United States since the year 1951. The last one built was in Chicago's Calumet Yard and was used by the Nickel Plate Road. The roundhouse has 18 stalls and is 48,000 square feet of solid masonry walls and heavy timber framing. This roundhouse is where he would protect each and every one of them from the elements so they wouldn't rust. In the collection, there are also diesel locomotives as well as passenger cars and freight cars, and even cabooses. 2018 was a sad year for him. He passed away, but the roundhouse keeps adding historic locomotives and train cars for him. The roundhouse even has tours for the public as well, and they happen on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. Okay, you can see behind me on this side of the boxcar and the other side of this boxcar is two semaphores with 8 different lights on the circle, and also they would flash showing you their colors, when to stop, when to go, when to proceed, slow down, and such. And I don't know if you can see clearly, but they change like every minute or so, I don't know. But I think the other one does the same, but it's facing the other way. You can find these next to the entryway at the Age of Steam Roundhouse complex in Sugarcreek, Ohio. What you see right behind me is Pennsylvania Railroad 51121. Pennsylvania Railroad 51121 was built by the Pennsylvania Railroad Altoona Shops in Altoona, Pennsylvania in 1929 and is a boxcar. This car was used for many years on the Pennsylvania Railroad, hauling cargo such as boxes, rolls of paper, merchandise, and a lot of items it may have hauled in the past. Sometime likely during World War II, the car was modified for express service and was renumbered 4996. In the 1990s, the car was acquired by Jerry Jacobson and received a new Pennsylvania Railroad paint and quick lettering job to appear in recreated steam freight trains on the Ohio Central Railroad. When the new roundhouse was built in 2008, it was brought to the site. In 2021, it was then going under restoration and was repainted. Then in 2022, the project was then complete and it soon looked good as new. Today, it is seen here preserved at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, where it is preserved today. Okay, you can see right here is a WigWag signal, and when it would swing, it would alert people that are about to drive across or walk across the tracks, or bicyclists as well, to stop when a train is approaching the crossing. I believe this would have been used by the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad years ago. And that red circle saying stop up there would swing like so as the lights would flash to alert people to stop at the crossing. And yeah, here it is today at the entryway of the Age of Steam Roundhouse here in Sugarcreek, Ohio. Okay, you can see up there's a depot signal, and it's attached to this building like an original depot was. The station agent would pull the lever to control the hands of the signals to which direction, whether to tell a train when to stop, slow down, or proceed. And this building is like a replica train depot, and it's a visitor center actually. What you see right behind me is Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 6144. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 6144 was built by Pullman in 1922 and is a heavyweight passenger car. This coach was used in mainline and branch line service for the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad many years ago and used on heavyweight passenger trains many years ago, and it would even have people on board it as well. It was then used by the Chicago commuter train service and renumbered into the 7300 series, but is unknown as well. Then in 1967, this car was retired and was sold to the Illinois Railway Museum in Union, Illinois. Then it was passed through several owners. In the 1990s, it was bought by Jerry Jacobson for use on the Ohio Central Railroad. The car was repainted to a maroon and red paint scheme to complement all the other cars on the train. Then when the new roundhouse was built in 2008, it was moved to the site. In 2019, it was repainted back to its Pullman green and Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy letters and number as well. Today, it is seen here at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, and sometimes people ride inside this car as well, and it's seen rolling as well. You can see right here is the maintenance of MOW Flatbed that is right here on this section of tracks. They would use it to carry spikes, tools, and etc. And it's here at Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio. Sometimes they put it on those tracks right there. They would lift it up using this handle and rotating it, put it on the tracks like so. Today it is seen here at AOS today. What you see right behind me is Buffalo Creek and Gauley 13. Buffalo Creek and Gauley 13 was built by Alco Brooks in Dunkirk, New York in 1920 and is the 615/79th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 280 consolidation type steam locomotive and is a G7S class steam locomotive. It was originally built for the Kelly's Creek and Northwestern and was originally numbered 6 in Ward, West Virginia, and it hauled logs on that railroad as well. It was sold for scrap at Midwest Steel Corp. Then there was light at the end of the tunnel and it was saved. In 1954, the Buffalo Creek and Gauley Railroad bought it and numbered it 13. Then it was sold for scrap again, but was once again saved. Then, in 1964, a man named William Stater bought the engine and was at Somerset, Pennsylvania. Then, in 1971, it was bought by the South Penn Museum in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where it was renumbered 662. Then, it was later moved to Ridgely, West Virginia. In 1976, it was bought by American Railroad Equipment Association, and it was then bought by Robert Spa in Elkhart, Indiana. In 1977, it was sold to the Lakeshore Railroad Historical Foundation in Elkhart, Indiana, and was renumbered 1977. Then, in 1978, it was moved to Middlebury, Indiana. Then, in 1980, it was moved to Logansport, Indiana, and 3 years later, sold to Logansport Iron Horse Festival. In 1992, it was bought by Jerry Jacobson for the Ohio Central, and he used it as a backup steam locomotive for the Canadian National Steam Locomotive 1551 on the railroad. This locomotive was last steamed in the mid-1990s. Today it is seen at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, where it is on display today. Also, Buffalo Creek and Gauley 13 is one of 3 surviving 280s from the Buffalo Creek and Gauley Railroad, and 13 can be found here at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, where it is today.
What you see right behind me is Central Vermont 4007.
Central Vermont 4007 was possibly built by the Central Vermont Railroad in St. Albans, Vermont, likely in 1910, and is a wooden caboose. This car was used on the railroad for several years, and it served as the railroad crew's office, checking in case anything went wrong or doing paperwork and such. It was also seen on the back of freight trains as well. It was then retired and was then put on display at the Depot Event Center in Columbus, Ohio. Then in 2018, the depot was put for sale, and this car had to be moved at some point. In 2023, it was acquired by the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio. It was moved from the previous location to its new home. Also, it underwent cosmetic restoration as well. Today it can be seen here at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, where it is today. What you see right behind me is Reading 1187. Reading 1187 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1903 and is the 21831st steam locomotive built by that factory and is an 040C Camel four-wheeler type steam locomotive. This locomotive is known as a Camelback. It was originally built for the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad, and this is the original number it had. It was used to switch cars in the yards for many years. The Camelback design shows that the cab is mounted on top of the boiler rather than straddling it, which it allowed room for a larger firebox, and it resembles a humpback camel. It's been many years switching cars for the railroads it served. In 1923, the railroad merged to the Reading Railroad and it kept the number. Then in 1946, it was sold to the E&G Brook Iron Company in Birdsboro, Pennsylvania, and it was renumbered 4. Then in 1952 it was sold to the Colorado Fuel and Iron Corp, and it kept the number. Later it was retired. Then in 1962 it was acquired by the Strasburg Railroad in Strasburg, Pennsylvania. It then arrived at the Strasburg Railroad under its own power. It was proved to be too light for the railroad's trains, and the last time it was operated was in 1967, and it was soon back into retirement. This was the last camelback steam locomotive to ever operate in the country as well. It was then displayed in the yard. Eventually it was loaned to the next-door rail attraction, the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. It was then parked in the yard at the Strasburg Railroad. Then it sat in the yard awaiting cosmetic restoration, and it spent many years with its paint slowly peeling away, and it was deteriorating a bit. Then in 2020 it was purchased by the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio. Then shortly after it arrived, cosmetic restoration began to stabilize the engine and make it look good as new. It then went on till 2023. The new cab was built in the shop and was painted and was mounted on as well. Today it is the smallest surviving camelback steam locomotive surviving today, and it is preserved at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, where it is preserved today. What you see right behind me is Nickel Plate Road 763. Nickel Plate Road 763 was built by the Lima Locomotive Works in Lima, Ohio in 1944 and is the 8671st steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 284 Berkshire type steam locomotive and is an S3 class steam locomotive. For many years, this locomotive has worked the Nickel Plate Road hauling freight equipment. Then, in 1964, the Nickel Plate Road merged to the Norfolk and Western Railroad. The locomotive was later retired, and in 1966 it was donated to the city of Roanoke, Virginia, and the Norfolk and Western, which the Nickel Plate Road merged to in 1964, moved it to Wasena Park, where it sat on display with the museum. When the Virginia Museum of Transportation was located there. In 1976, the locomotive was moved to New Jersey for a possible overhaul, as it was a contending locomotive to pull the American Freedom Train. Once the engine arrived, it was to be checked over and restored to working condition and would double head with its sister 759, which is at the Steamtown National Historic Site in Scranton, Pennsylvania. The plan failed and the locomotive was sent back to Roanoke and Southern Pacific Daylight 4449, which is owned and operated by the Oregon Rail Heritage Center in Portland, Oregon. And that one was chosen to pull the American Freedom Train instead. This locomotive then ended up at the Virginia Museum of Transportation in the city, where it joined the collection. In 2007, Jerry Jacobson bought the locomotive for his collection at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio. It was moved by the Norfolk Southern Railroad on its own wheels all the way to the Roundhouse complex. Then it made it safely to the site in Sugarcreek, Ohio, where it is today. Also, Nickel Plate Road 763 is one of 6 surviving Nickel Plate Road 284s left in the world today, and 763 is seen at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, where it is preserved today. What you see right behind me is Grand Trunk Western 6325. Grand Trunk Western 6325 25 was built by Alco in Schenectady, New York in 1942 and is the 696 31st steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 484 Northern type steam locomotive and is a U-3B class steam locomotive. For many years, this locomotive has operated on the Grand Trunk Western Railroad and was used to haul passenger trains for the Grand Trunk Western Railroad, such as the Maple Leaf and the International Limited. In 1948, it was chosen to pull President Harry S. Truman's re-election campaign special. In 1959, it was retired and was donated to the city of Battle Creek, Michigan, and sat on display at the Grand Trunk Western Depot in the town. In 1985, a restoration effort was created to get the locomotive into operating condition again. The Grand Trunk Western and Canadian National required the Confederation locomotive to be moved. In 1993, Jerry Jacobson stepped in and bought the locomotive for the Ohio Central Railroad, and it was restored to operation in the Morgan Run shops in Morgan Run, Ohio. It started running under its own power in 2001 and was used to pull historic freight cars and even historic passenger cars. It ran a lot of fan trips and photographer specials on the Ohio Central. Then in 2005 it stopped running and was sidelined with a hot driving axle bearing and has not operated since then. Then in 2008 it was moved to the complex where the newly built Roundhouse was built. Currently it is still out of service at this time and it is currently a display piece in the Roundhouse. Today it is preserved at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, where it is today. Also, Grand Trunk Western 6325 is one of two surviving Grand Trunk Western 484s left in the world today, and 6323 is the other one and is at the Illinois Railway Museum in Union, Illinois, and 6325 is here preserved at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, where it is seen today.
What you see right behind me is Canadian Pacific 1293.
Canadian Pacific 1293 was built by Canadian Locomotive Company in Kingston, Ontario in 1948 and is the 2450th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 462 Pacific type steam locomotive and is a G5D class steam locomotive. This locomotive was used on the Canadian Pacific Railroad for many years, pulling passenger and freight trains. Then, in 1958, it was retired and was placed in storage with numerous other locomotives waited to be cut up for scrap. Then, in 1964, it was bought by Francis Nelson Blount for his collection at Steamtown in North Walpole, New Hampshire. In 1966, the museum was soon moved to Bellow Falls, Vermont. The locomotive needed only minor repairs to get it under steam again, and soon it was relettered Green Mountain Railroad and pulled short tourist trains at Steamtown. It was also used to pull the Vermont Bicentennial train during 1976 and was temporarily numbered 1881 to appear in the 1979 horror movie Terror Train. In 1984, it was moved to the new Steamtown site in Scranton, Pennsylvania, but never operated at that location. In 1996, it was bought by Jerry Jacobson and was rebuilt by the Ohio Central Railroad. In 1997, it started running on the Ohio Central under steam. Also, it is part of the collection of the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio as well. In 2017, it stopped running under its own power and currently awaiting a major overhaul. Also, Canadian Pacific 1293 is one of 10 surviving Canadian Pacific 462s left in the world today, and is one of 4 seen here in America, and the other 6 are still in Canada as well, and 1293 is seen here at the Age of Steam Roundhouse, along with the other 462 from that railroad, which is number 1278, where it is seen today.
So the little old guy in there with a hammer type,
Canadian National 96 was built by Canadian Locomotive Company in Kingston, Ontario in 1910 and is the 937th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 260 Mogul type steam locomotive and is an E10A class steam locomotive. It was originally built for the Grand Trunk of Canada and originally numbered 1024. Then, in 1923, the Grand Trunk Western merged to Canadian National and the locomotive was soon owned by Canadian National, where it was renumbered 926. Then, it was later renumbered 96. It spent many years hauling trains up in Canada as well. In 1959, it was sold to Edaville Corp in Wakefield, Massachusetts. Then, in 1961, it was moved to North Walpole, New Hampshire. In 1963, it was bought by Francis Nelson Blount for his collection at Steamtown in North Walpole, New Hampshire. In 1966, the museum soon moved to Bellow Falls, Vermont. It wasn't operated, but it was a part source to keep his engines under steam. When Steamtown was moving to Scranton, Pennsylvania, it was sold to Horst Mueller in Brantford, Ontario in 1986. Then, in 1994, it was bought by Jerry Jacobson for the Ohio Central Railroad, and he's had his hands on it, but he never operated it on the Ohio Central. Then when he built the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, it was moved there in 2008, where it is today. Also, Canadian National 96 is one of either 9 surviving Canadian National 260s left in the world today, and only 8 survive on land, and it is one of 4 260s from Canadian National that live in America today, and the other 4 still live in Canada, and 96 can be found here at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, where it is today.
What you see right behind me is Sturm Dillard 105.
Sturm Dillard 105 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1917 and is the 448/86th steam locomotive built by that factory and is an 060 six-wheeler type steam locomotive. It was built for the John Marsh Inc. Railroad Contractors and was numbered 51. In 1923, it was sold to Birmingham Rail and Locomotive, a dealer who bought and sold used rail equipment. Then in 1929, it was sold to the Sturm Dillard in Circleville, Ohio. It worked at the company-owned gravel pits there and hauled cars loaded with gravel as well. It was later retired and was nearly sent for scrap. In 1969, Art Davis purchased the locomotive. In 1971, it was loaded onto a gondola and was moved to the former Pennsylvania Railroad Roundhouse in Erie, Pennsylvania. In 1983, it was then moved to the industrial property in Orrville, Ohio. It had a slope-back tender originally and was swapped out with the current tender it has. He also fired the locomotive up occasionally for his friends to enjoy, including Jerry Jacobson and members of his crew. Following Art's death, his friend Jerry Jacobson bought the locomotive for the collection at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio in 2015. It then arrived at the Roundhouse by truck. Today it is preserved at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, where it is seen today. What you see right behind me is Alabama, Tennessee, Northern 401. Alabama, Tennessee, and Northern 401 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1928 and is the 603 41st steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 210O decapod type steam locomotive and is a 12-42-F class steam locomotive. This locomotive was originally built for the Alabama, Tennessee, and Northern Railroad, and this is the number it had for that railroad. In 1946, the locomotive was sold to the Georgia Car and Locomotive Company, a dealer in used railroad equipment. In 1948, it was sold to the Woodward Iron Company and was renumbered 41, and for many years, this locomotive was likely meant to haul freight on the railroads it was used by. For the Woodward Iron Company, it was used to pull trains loaded with coal and limestone from company mines to quarries to Woodward Iron Company pig iron mills in Woodward, Alabama. In 1959, the locomotive was retired, and in 1964, it was bought by the Mid-Continent Railway Museum in North Freedom, Wisconsin, and it just sat outdoors slowly deteriorating. Then, in 2015, it was listed at the museum's auction. The locomotive was sold to Jerry Jacobson at the auction for the collection at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio. To get it to the railroad Midland and is numbered 203 from that one and is at the Southeastern Railway Museum in Duluth, Georgia. And 401 is preserved at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, where it is today. What you see right behind me is the turntable. This turntable was originally built in 1914 and it is 115 feet long. Originally, this turntable was built for the Western Maryland Railroad roundhouse in Hagerstown, Maryland, where it was originally. It was used for several years to rotate steam locomotives from one track to another, or to turn them around to face the opposite direction. It would even be used to rotate cars too. Then it was retired and the roundhouse it was with was abandoned. In 1990, the turntable was lifted out of its original well it once stood inside of. In 2010, it was put in this spot around the same time the roundhouse was finished being constructed. It then got running soon. Today, it is seen here at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugarcreek, Ohio, as a good example to explain how it is used as well. Also, it functions the same way it used to many years ago at the roundhouse like it used to do in Hagerstown, Maryland, as it does in Sugarcreek, Ohio today.
Well, I hope you all enjoy learning about trains with me today in Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Also, I hope to see you all again in the next segment. And if you didn't subscribe to my channel yet, the subscribe button is just down below the video screen. And if you didn't give the Facebook page a like yet, here's where you'll want to go. And also, if you didn't give the Instagram page a follow yet, here's where you'll want to go as well. Also, be sure to get your merch at teesprings.com. The link is in the description box below, along with the Facebook and Instagram pages. And as always, remember to subscribe to the Train Guy. So this is Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Sign out until next time.